Hello, good evening, and welcome to PM Express. Yes, I know I am not in the studio, but as I've said, this whole week is going to be about attitudinal change. It's going to be about positive thinking, about feeding the soul with edifying thoughts. We have heard so many times about negative reportage, and I think that I owe it to us, myself, the listeners, the nation, to have a week where we talk about strategies or even bring on the table things that can make us move forward as a people and as a nation. And that's what brings me here today. I've been here before, but I was here to be inquisitive, to talk to Bishop Samuel Mensah, find out who he is, where he went to school and everything. But then I realized that no, this guy is deeper than that. So when we came up with this idea of having a motivational week, I thought, you know what, let me come knocking on his door again, because he has ideas which is beneficial to us all. And hence I'm here, and I knocked and I was opened. Well, Bishop, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nana.
Even though I'm in your church.
Yeah, thank
you. Well, I know you've written a lot of good articles, and being a bishop, normally when a bishop writes a good article, it's about, very centered around church. Mm-hmm. But yours goes beyond the church, but as a nation, how to be a good citizen as a whole.
Right.
And it falls in line with what we're trying to do this week. Mm-hmm. Positive thinking, strategic attitudes. Right. As a people, we're not going to force anybody to change, but at least get talking and thinking about it. And I like your topic about, the vision for Ghana's development.
Right.
I thought, why not? Let me come and talk to you in depth about it. And maybe I may be cheeky and ask to come again and talk further if you grant us the permission.
Okay.
But today we're looking at the idea of having a national agenda. Even though we've heard it several times, there hasn't been that in-depth of how is it possible, because it's always easier said, than done.
Yeah, right.
And I just start by asking that, do you believe that our problem as a country, as a continent, as a people, has been ineffective leadership? I mean, do you share that notion?
Yes, I strongly believe, Nana, that nothing gets done without vision. And whether even as a nucleus family, a community, a society, a church, a nation, nothing gets done without vision that will drive an individual, to its desired destination. So the starting point for any organization, be it a family, a community, an institution, and a government, the starting point is vision. And so without that, definitely no country will get anywhere. No society will arrive at any destination. And the situation we find ourselves as a people and as a nation, I strongly believe that it's as a result of the absence of a national vision that definitely will drive us forward.
There is, from some of your articles that you've written, and there's a quotation which I found marvelous, and it was by Lee Kuan Yew, which you quoted. It says, honest and effective government, public order and personal security, economic and social progress did not come about as a natural course of event.
That's right.
I think it's very simple but very profound.
Exactly. I mean, we know the Singapore story. It took one generation for Lee Kuan Yew to transform the country. But it didn't come as a result of a natural course of event. It took intentional crafting of a vision, moving the nation. I mean, in one of his chapters of his book from Third World to First World, he said that, look, the whole nation at the point, where roads were disorganized, people had cattle and goats all around the cities and town. Until he got to a point, he said, no, this can't be. So he crafted that vision. And it will only take place when leaders deliberately craft a vision to move our nation forward. The word is intentional and deliberate. That must be done by the leaders.
Not a natural course.
It wouldn't come by natural course. Nothing. Nothing happens by chance if you have to move people. Because the job of any individual is move people from A to B. And you need to tell yourself, this is not right. We can't be here. We must get there. We can only get there by crafting the vision.
Moses and the people of Israel in Egypt?
They had a vision. God gave them a vision. The vision was that, look, it's not good for you to build in Egypt. I'm taking you to the promised land where it flows with milk and honey. So they
took
painted
Moses to come.
a glorious picture. And then, they made them to aware that Egypt was miserable. That was not going to be good. So they caught the vision. And then they had to move from point A to point B. So the starting point is vision, and that is what, as a people, and I believe that's what a lot of well-meaning Ghanaians are calling for, the crafting of a national vision for which is necessary. Because some of these countries, we call them the newly industrialized countries, like Thailand, like Singapore, perhaps, these are countries that had the same similar problems we have. They were even under-resourced than Ghana. We are heavily resourced, yet we find ourselves where we are now. But these countries have literally transformed themselves in one generation. So what prevents us from doing that? The difference was that they had a vision, they crafted a vision that decided to move the country forward.
Bankruptcy in terms of leadership.
Yeah.
Would you think we are suffering in terms of, leadership that is not too driven by vision, or what will be our issue? What will be our excuse, if I may ask?
You see, the problem is that, yes, there is a bankruptcy of leadership in our society, in our country. One of the major jobs of people, of leaders, is they solve problems, they fix things. So when you find indiscipline, lawlessness, disorder in the society, and then people are always coming up with excuses, and they are coming out with problems why things are not being done, it tells you that we just don't have leaders. There is one great scripture in the book of Judges. When Deborah said the streets were deserted, there was complete law and order had broken down, the situation was a failed state. He said he realized that there was nothing going on right. He said until Deborah, arose. In other words, when you find disorder, it means that there's an absence of a leader. And Deborah said, when I arose, I put things in order, I fixed the problems. So the reflection of our society suggests that we have people who call themselves leaders. They are in positions, but they are really not getting things done. So yes, we suffer a bankruptcy of leadership. And that is not only in political arena, but in education, in the industries, in church, in our society. That is the problem we have, and until we begin to improve, we wouldn't get anywhere.
Great leaders are defined by great challenges that confront them. It's one of the sub-topics that you've written, and I want you to elaborate on that a bit.
When as an institution or a society is confronted with problems, that is when leaders emerge. And when the more complex the problem is, and the leaders are able to rise up to deal with the problem, that defines them. In leadership, we call it the defining moment for the leader. Because it is when he will either become a star or become a failure, depending upon how those problems are handled. So sometimes leaders are excited about the mountain of problems that confront them, because in the midst of those difficulties, people have already given up. So when a leader shows up, you give them hope, you give them faith, you encourage them, you chart a course. And in the midst of those crises, crisis management situation would not be everything normal. Things are suspended, just like a building is catching fire, or probably there's fire in a particular area. Immediately when you come, you shout, fix this in here, get out of the door, open this door, do this, do that. So you don't go through normal procedure. And that is when everybody responds to, because people know that they are in crisis. So you call for a situation where people begin to respond. And when you are able to fix those problems, that is when you become a hero. And so most leaders are excited when there are problems that confront them, because that would define them. And so that is why leadership is not defined. Great leaders are defined by the problems that they deal with and how they get them fixed. But unfortunately, we have people who run away from those problems. Instead of getting them down, they explain it. But great leaders do not explain problems. They get things done, they fix it. That is one of the axioms I live with, that you get a job done, you fix it.
See, what you were just saying cast my mind back to the Dunblane massacre, where a young man goes into a nursery in Dunblane in Ireland, shoots some of the children and the teachers. Within a year, I think Tony Blair had passed a rule that nobody can own a handgun. You see, if I come back here, you look at the mounting of road accidents, and I think at the moment we are hovering about 2,500 deaths already.
That is very serious.
And we are in November. And then you look at some of the Jida saga and everything. And you listen to radio callers, and caller after caller come up with simple suggestions. Why don't Chirac do it? Why don't Yoko do it? Because these are why this is... And they are basic, but we just can't seem to nail it. So what is the stumbling block?
Nana, I strongly think it's just like sending a mechanic to Kolebu to take care of patients. Naturally, people are going to die. He's going to kill people. When people can't get the things done, it tells you they don't have what it takes. They are not the kind of leaders that can get the job done. So it's like a mechanic who has decided to become a medical doctor. And without training, with no training and nothing, and he's going to take care of the patients. Naturally, there's going to be chaos and disaster. So if people with all these road accidents, it's very simple. One of the things great leaders can do, first of all, meet with the judiciary. Let them know that, listen, we cannot allow these things to continue to lose lives. Therefore, either we will have to come up with other laws that if you would kill an individual whilst crossing the pedestrian, that should be considered as a murder, first class. That should be considered as murder. So it's not a question of, just they will fine you and then you'll be relieved. But it will be considered as murder. And you'll be dealt with. So you deal with the judiciary. Then you speak to the police institution that, look, now these are the things what we need to do to really curb and reduce this rampant road accident. The killing of lives. That must be intentional. But if we don't do that, it's like getting a mechanic and asking him to be a doctor. What would you expect to happen?
He might be a good mechanic.
Sure, he may be a good mechanic, but not in that field. So people may be nice, but they don't have what it takes to get these things done. And that is the bottom line. And not until we help them so that they will be able to know what it takes to solve these problems, they wouldn't get anywhere.
Another section in your journal, if I may say, I was reading, and it says you subscribe to the fact that vision is an indispensable element in a leader's life, and that's how it plays in the national development of our country. Now, if I say that, then I'd say that we have that already, because every leader now comes with what they call their manifesto. And that's my vision, so I bring it. He brings his vision, and he brings it. So is that what we are saying here? If you subscribe that the fact that vision is an indispensable element in a leader's life, and that's how it plays in national development. And in this leader's life, he's come with his manifesto, this is my vision. And the other one comes with his vision. So if you elaborate there on this point for me.
Vision is the fuel for any individual who wants to lead an organization, be it MD, chief executive, a manager, a politician, what have you. It is the energy for the leader that wakes you up in the morning, that keeps hope alive. And so without that, definitely you are not taking off, you are not going anywhere. And until we as a nation, we develop this kind of leadership, definitely we wouldn't get anywhere. I'm talking about a vision that surpasses the individual interest. So it is not a vision for a particular political party. It must be a vision that must be owned by every individual. It must be a vision that would definitely chart a direction, for our country. For example, saying, we want to move this country from a third world to the first world in one generation, be it one generation, 40 years. So we will move people from where we are to where we desire to be in one generation. So it is a vision that is deliberately charting a course. It must be the vision that will challenge the status quo, that we can't do business as usual. We can't keep on doing the things we are doing. It must be vision that will build the systems and the structures. You see, because once we spell out the vision, then the vision will demand that certain systems and structures will have to be redefined if we will have to definitely drive that vision forward. It must also be vision that will challenge us that, hey, listen, we are capable of becoming what we would desire to be. So I believe that the starting point is a vision. If we don't have it, definitely we can't go anywhere. And government will have to come out and get the people to buy into that vision, you know. And so and that will probably lead us to the crafting of a national vision. So that the question is, a party has a manifesto, yes, but it is only the party's manifesto. So even though they call it manifesto, that is not a vision for the country. Now, to probably not craft a vision, we can bring all politicians together. They all have manifestos in the first place. So every politician has a manifesto. So we can all ask all of them to come together, not only the politicians, but we can bring in other stakeholders. We can bring in the organized groups, religious groups, you know, the professional groups, the bar association. All these, you know, organized groups can be brought together. Probably form what we call Vision Consultative Assembly. And with all these political manifestos, political parties' manifestos, and with all these organized, recognized groupings, they will make input and eventually craft what we will call a national vision that will begin to be the starting point for where we want to go.
Let me take a break here and bringing everybody together. One of the things you also mentioned is attitudinal change. When I come back, I want to find out if indeed we all put our ideas in one pot and say that's the national vision, then what would be the significance of somebody else say, oh, I want to come and be the leader? Because then there's one person, they're already doing what the vision is, but maybe there's something deeper than that. It's right after the break. Hello and welcome back from the break. I am talking to Bishop Samuel Mensah, who is the CEO of Full Gospel Church International. In 20 years, they hope to get about 500 churches globally. Now, that's what I call leadership with a vision. And today, we are just looking at the idea of having a national agenda. We always say, how practical is it? And just before we went on the break, Bishop mentioned that we should all come together, non-political, religious, everybody come together and form this, you know, national vision. And I'm saying, I'm going to put it to him that once we've done that, then just let one person lead for the next 20, 30 years, because even if he goes and the next person comes, you know, he's just going to pursue the same agenda. Would that be the case? Would we still need people in the flanks wanting to come into power, or once we form the agenda, we just let one person lead for a long time?
No, not necessarily. You know, once we form a national vision, we own it, we give it the necessary legal framework. Now, what would that mean is that when a political party comes into power, he will look at one component of that national vision, and then he will say, perhaps, I will pursue that. For example, he may think about that they may consider industrialization. Mm-hmm. And so they would say, hey, listen, for the next 4 years, we will drive industrialization. The next time another political party comes into office, they will probably look at the socio-cultural transformation of our people. Mm-hmm. So they will look at perhaps environment. They will look at sanitation. And they would think that, hey, perhaps this is what we need to fix. That should be the beginning point so that our nation can be prepared for development. So every political party would come in, but would look at a component of the vision and drive it. Because, you know, when you spread yourself too thin, you are not making any impact.
Should this vision have priorities, i.e. we'll start with education and then move to agri, or should all be tackled at the same time? How should it be?
In vision development, you can't tackle everything holistically. You know, you break the vision into segments, and then you'd ask yourself now, what is it that will depend upon the leader now? Mm-hmm. What is it that I would like to start with? So if you think you will want to start with education, then you will have to work towards that. And that is when you will bring all stakeholders together and then ask them, well, if I'm going with education, then, you know, because this is our vision, we'll have to restructure our curriculum, you know, from kindergarten to the university to suit the vision. And so you cannot definitely deal with every part of the vision. You need to focus, and that's where focus is important. Focus and zero on one component of the vision to drive it.
One difficult thing which I find is the changing of attitude, which I see you have in your list here, the vision that will call for a change of attitude. Aren't we so set in our ways and comfortable in our ways? People will even live in filth and not even bother to clean. A basic thing as filth and not bother to clean up because they were born there, they've lived there. How does one person come and then say, you know, this is it. You're not going to live like this anymore. How do you do that?
Now, if, for example, one of the components of the vision is sociocultural transformation, which should be the change of attitude, because vision calls for a change of attitude. It is because of the vision, that is why you are changing the way you do things. Now, so if it is the social cultural transformation, what a leader can do is, you know, one of the major agents of change are the religious leaders. And so, first of all, engage all the religious leaders, you know, from the Muslims and the Christians, and tell them that, look, this is the direction we want to go. People's attitude are so bad, they do the wrong thing, and so now we want you to translate your Sunday and Friday programs and teachings into the day-to-day life of our people. Then you will also move to the educational setup, and then ask the educational authorities from kindergarten right down to JSS and the SHS. We will now want you to deal with these issues of attitudinal change. You know, so this attitudinal change cannot come overnight. It may take probably a decade, but you have launched it. And the drivers who are the agents of change, the religious organizations and the educational program, will drive this. But it must be the leader who would say, this is where we are going. It's not right to stay here. We must get here. You need to let them know how miserable here is and how better there would be. And then you bring all the stakeholders to say, this is what we want to do. This is how we are going to get things done. So that is what can be done. And believe you me, within a decade, we can have a total attitudinal change. When these religious leaders are playing their role, and from the educational point, from kindergarten, we are beginning to transform the way people do things. We can get that.
We have a system where, you know, every leader has probably 4 or 3.5, maximum maybe 3 years to come back on the podium and say, you know, I did this and I did that. So once you put a 10-year program down, you probably run the risk of not coming back into power.
No, remember, we said, you see, once the vision has been crystallized, and now the vision is no more Party A's vision, not Party B's vision. It is a national vision. We all own it. We all believe in it. And that is what is going to drive us. And we all want a better society, you know, and a healthy society. So when people begin to see positive signs of change, believe you me, and you are the person empowered leading that particular aspect of the vision, the chances are very high that you'll be retained for your next elections, because people know you have started something. Even if you should go off, the incoming government knows that, look, a good work has started. They have testimonies to prove that people's behavior is changing. They will pursue that, because that is also another aspect of leadership transition. When you take up an organization and an institution, which is another subject of itself, you do not just stop the good things that you have gone to inherit. You need to carry it and make it better. You know, so literally, whoever takes over, if it is good and people have testified, he will have to drive it, because it's a national vision. Remember, we all own it, we all have a stake in it, and that is going to drive all of us forward. So nobody will actually, you know, truncate it. And as it were, it's like, well, it wouldn't matter. But people know the results, and the people will tell you, the leader, that, look, this attitude we have to improve upon, I think, is something good we should pursue.
One of the last point you got here says, government will come and go, but the people will always be there. That is why, as a nation, we cannot survive without a national vision. So my question is, since we don't have a national vision, and I mean, we have what they call the GSD, SDDA, and even those who wrote don't even know what's in it. So, I mean, that's there. But since we don't have, like, the Operation Feed Yourself national vision where everybody bought into it, Which, I mean, is there any other way we can move forward as a nation, or we are doomed?
Without the national vision, I want our viewers to listen to me loud and clear. This nation is not going anywhere, and we are doomed without a national vision. The best we can do, we are just going in circles, believe you me, without a national vision. It is the starting point for any individual. And so governments will come and go, but it is the national vision that will stay and that will sustain us, because we will all find ourselves and plugged into it. And so that is what everyone is calling for. No nation has developed without a national vision. JFK gave a national vision to the people of America in 1960 that, look, we want to put a man on the moon. The whole nation went for it. That is the national vision. You know, so if you don't give a national vision to the community, to the society, that society is not going anywhere.
Bishop, you see, most people in political leadership have been to school. They are mostly graduates. Mm-hmm. They probably have read books, watched documentaries, and a great majority of them have had the opportunity of studying abroad. I am sure a great majority of them too know that without a national vision, it's very difficult to have a focus on where you're going, and yet still hasn't implemented. So is it daylight robbery? Is it deliberate? Or are they just caught in a circumstance and they are making the best of it?
I think it must call for some courage to say that, look, in the first place, I think people must be angry about their state of affairs. And they must be dissatisfied about where they find themselves. If that is not producing an anger in your own spirit, in your own soul, it's not going to call for a change. You know, in the Bible, there was a story about Nehemiah when he was told about the situation of Jerusalem. He was angry about the whole situation. He said, look, this is not right. And then every individual who wants to improve the lives of people would say, this is not right. We must move from A to B. If you can identify and say that this is not right, you are not ready to move the people, because you haven't seen what is wrong with the people, or you haven't seen what is wrong in the system. So it must call for people who are courageous to say, let us craft something and take people to the desired result. You see, vision is a friend of a leader. So where the individual doesn't have a vision, he may hold a position, but that doesn't make him a leader. We have a lot of educated illiterates now. So it is not just education that will make you better. It is the education, but without the necessary training skills that will allow you to develop that vision, you are definitely not going to go anywhere. So it's not just the education. We have a lot of products now, but we are not proud of the people that we have produced in the first place, because there's something even wrong with our education. Remember, the people we see in our society, our politicians, our leaders, that we are not happy with them, it's not their fault. It's a reflection of the society. They are a product of the society. Okay, so they are just doing what they consider the best thing. And if we don't like what we are seeing, we must change what we do. Otherwise, we will constantly produce these people, because they come from the secondary school to the university, and from the university they are either leaders in the political, some SRC and some other positions. Mm-hmm. From there, then they get into government. So they have become a product of the society. And if what the society is producing is not anything to be proud of, believe you me, wherever they find themselves, they can't do anything better. So they must be courageous to say that, and if they don't know, maybe through this medium, we can educate them that the starting point is to craft a vision, and we can help them to craft that vision that you and I can be proud of, that the next generation of leaders will be proud of the Ghana that they desire to see.
You see, if a leader dares to be courageous in our present system, sometimes the wolves may eat him alive. Number one, when the president came out and said, look, the meat is close to the bone, it's like, my goodness, who ate the meat and this and that, and he was, a barrage of insinuations against him. So I guess the next leader who comes, if he found that there's not even any bone, he probably won't come out and tell you, look, forget about the meat, there's no bone. You keep quiet, just for fear of persecution. Aren't we creating a system that puts fear in the leader to even come out and tell you that, listen, this is the situation and that we can't be here?
Nana, your question is just like going to the doctor. He has diagnosed your problems, ask you to go to the lab. The lab report comes, he looks at the problems and he realizes that, man, no, it's very serious. And yet he's not able to communicate, to tell you how serious your situation is. And he's not going to also prescribe a solution, but he's just playing around. Eventually you can charge that doctor for murder. You see, the problem, if you have diagnosed the problem, you must communicate that problem to the patient that, look, these are your issues, these are the problems. But guess what? There is hope. This is what we can do. Leaders are good communicators. You don't leave communication to somebody else to speak for you. You speak yourself. And then when you begin to communicate that, look, this is the crisis we find ourselves in. Therefore, this is what we can do to get out. Once you give people that hope, they would be there to support you, to drive it forward. So to keep quiet is a non-starter. Because one of the things that people do, real leaders do, they communicate. So the most important thing is let people know where we find ourselves in, let them know where we want to go, let them know how we can get there, let them know what role they can play for us to get there, and invite them on board. And believe you me, people will make that contribution.
Kwame Nkrumah used to do dawn broadcast, even though I wasn't there to listen to dawn broadcast, but you think it was an effective way of waking people up at dawn and telling them this is where we are and this is where we're going?
People never get tired from hearing the voice of a leader. Okay? And going back to the scripture, that's why Jesus said, my sheep knows my voice. They hear me. People never get tired of hearing the voice of a leader. And your job as a leader is always get in touch with your people. Let them know what you want them to do. Inspire them, encourage them, challenge them. And when people begin to hear you, then they know that they are connected to you. And you are connecting to them to drive them. So yes, what Nkrumah did was very good. And in fact, the U.S. Barack Obama, he does that on a weekly basis to communicate with the people. So you don't wait until you use a particular platform to deal with an issue that is emerging. No, once the issue is emerging, you have the whole platform for yourself. Speak to the nation, speak to the issues, challenge the people that, listen, it is not right. We can't be here. We must get there. And this is what I'm taking everybody to. And I'm asking all of you, come on board and let's drive it forward.
We look at, because we're talking about vision, and Kwame Nkrumah is one visionary that's celebrated worldwide. And he's written books.
Yeah.
And most of the things he was doing in the 60s, were applicable, for today's, day and age. We are solving energy problems of last 3 years. Today, I mean, all the problems we're talking about energy is for last 3 years. So we're actually solving history. What stops us from also solving problems for our unborn children?
Kwame Nkrumah, great leader. He was, people describe him as a man who was 40 years ahead of his generation. And that is why most of the things he stood for, things he has done and he did, are still relevant today. Because the man was 40 years ahead of his generation. And but the difficulty of Nkrumah was that he couldn't bring the people alongside him. Okay, even though he was a visionary leader, a great leader, he couldn't bring the people alongside. So the distance between him and his followers was 40 years apart. And so it was so difficult for the people to appreciate him, to understand him. And I think one of his mistake and challenge was his inability to communicate, the vision, where we are going, what we can do, how we can get there, and to slow down a little bit. You see, so he couldn't slow down. The pace was too fast for others. And remember, at that time, the society wasn't highly educated too at that time. So that was the challenge. And I think coming back, when we begin to craft this kind of vision, we will then be able, like I said, bring all stakeholders together. Then we own the vision. And this vision, if you may, can be divided into about 10 thematic areas.
Let me take a break here, and then when I come back, we'll break it down. Nkrumah had a challenge where maybe the majority of the population was not highly schooled, if I may say. But here we are now with a great population of us highly schooled. So the leaders of today, can they move equally as fast as Nkrumah did? And if so, why not? We're coming straight back. Hello and welcome back. Just before the break, I was finding out the challenges Nkrumah had was the ability to slow down or really let the people buy into his vision and run with it with him. But if he had the excuse or the reason that maybe a majority of the people then were not schooled and not maybe blessed with the age of information like we do, then Bishop, I'm asking, we have access to information, so we know what's going on in Singapore and how they did it. Maybe then you have to wait for a telegraph to come and everything. Our leaders today, can they move at a faster pace as Nkrumah did, or do they have to even slow down because we are mobile? I mean, what will be their challenge?
I believe that leaders can move at a faster pace because, one, they have the benefit of technology. They have all the benefits of what will inform the people to do whatever they want them to do. So leaders of today have no excuse compared to the leaders of years ago. So, but the reason why they are not able to do what they have to do is, first of all, nothing is driving that leader. And that which should drive him is a vision. He must be passionate about it. It must be infused into his system. You cannot ignite a fire in someone's heart if that fire is not first of all burning in your own heart. So you must be consumed by that vision of the fact that you are moving people from point A to point B. If you are consumed by that, you would then sell it. Leaders are dealers of hope. That is what Napoleon Bonaparte said. They are dealers of hope. Every individual is always selling something. And your job as a leader is to sell information that will allow the people to buy it. So our leaders of today have no excuse because they have the information of technology. But the deficiency is that there is nothing driving that person for him even to sell whatever he wants to communicate, which is called the vision. So again, they are bankrupt. People are bankrupt with vision. It is not there. And that is the situation we find ourselves.
Now, Bishop, I want to find out what would go into this whole vision idea and how it's going to sink into the fact that the average youth in sanitation, woman or man, even sweeping the side of the road at 4 a.m. in the morning, knows that this street that I'm sweeping or this country that I live in, this is the vision.
No, you see, after bringing in all the political parties, you bring in the recognized professional bodies, the TUC, the academia, the business world, the religious leaders, that will form what I call the Vision Consultative Assembly to craft that national vision. Every vision must be bigger than the visioneer. Okay, and the vision must be what we call, I call it special, as an acronym. Jim Collins calls it BHAG. It must be big, hairy, audacious goals. I call it special. Special, S is my specific. P is people-oriented, because vision must be about people. It must be about improving the lives of people. It must also, E is empowerment. It must empower people, equip them towards that vision. That vision will make them better people. C is change-oriented. Okay, every vision challenges the status quo. Every vision solves, first of all, every vision will identify a problem. Number two, the vision will then provide a solution for the problem. And number three, the vision will tell them the reason for the problem. So once people get that, then that will lead to the change of the status quo. And then I is inspiring. The vision must inspire people that they would say, that is where I can be. I can find myself. I can own a house in 10 years because of this national vision. A must be audacious. That will really move us and challenge us that is doable. The L is long term, not 5 years, but between 10 to 30 years, that this is where we are going. So every vision must fit into this particular concept of acronym special, once your vision can be defined in that parameters, then you are ready. Then that is a vision that will drive you forward. You know, Miles Monroe made a statement. He said, "Nothing noble or noteworthy on earth was ever done without vision. No invention, development, or great feat was ever accomplished without the inspiring power of this mysterious source called vision." Unquote. Wow. So that is that which will really move us forward. And once we are able to define that in the acronym special, we are ready to move our nation, our community, our society forward. But you see, then the vision will have to now cover what I call the 10 thematic areas. One, it has to look at education. Now, so that the vision must cover these areas: education, health, agriculture, what have you. But even when we come to like education, that is when you will challenge all the SHS people, the SHS teachers, call them to a meeting, the vice chancellors of all the universities, to develop a new curriculum that will suit the vision. Remember, it is the vision that leads the leader, and not the leader leading the vision. The vision is in front. Wherever the vision goes, the leader follows. So the leader is subject to the vision. And so because the vision tells us that we want to become a developed nation in one generation, which is 40 years, your first group of call would be the educational setup. Put all the heads of senior secondary school teachers together, the vice chancellors together, and now tell them this is the direction: industrialization, based upon the vision. So develop a curriculum that will equip our people so that when they get out of the university, they can plug themselves into that vision. They can find themselves into that vision. Now, if part of the vision is agricultural revolution, again, what do? Then you will develop, again, the universities will now develop programs that students can take advantage of. Okay, then you will develop systems and structures that what can we do to probably import equipments so that our people can have what it takes to really drive the agriculture. Health, building teaching hospitals in all the 10 regions. Now, if your vision says you want to give quality health, now the vision will determine in the next 15 years, every regional hospital must have a teaching hospital there, a world-class hospital. It is not you determining it. It's the vision that is telling you what to do. Coming into industrialization, each region to concentrate on a particular, manufacturing and production, activity. For example, Ashanti region can say, well, vehicle assembly plant, building and putting vehicles together. So any activity that in a company that wants to establish a vehicle assembly plant, you go to Ashanti region. Brongahafo may probably focus on perhaps furniture. So if you want to establish anything about in furniture, you go to Ashanti region. If it comes to agriculture, tomatoes, what have you, if every region is identified with any in particular industry, believe you me, it would save and prevent this rural migration to Accra, because every region will have something to focus on and to create employment. So it would be very easy for any government to take a decision. When investors come, well, I want to probably develop A, B, or C. In all your 10 regions, which each region is specialized in a particular program. So you say, well, go to Central region, or go to Western region, or go to Ashanti region, based upon what you want to do. So it is very easy for workers and individuals to take decisions. And what you are now literally doing is that you are empowering all the regions to be self-supporting and to, as it were, win itself from government, funding. Okay? Because look at Germany alone. They have Audi, they have BMW, they have Mercedes-Benz, and then they have VW. That is 4 major, vehicle assembly plants there. Yet they are succeeding and making the great impact. Okay, so we can have most of these activities, industries in our country, and definitely we can transform our people. Sociocultural transformation, that is one aspect the vision will call for. Because of this vision, we are now requesting for attitudinal change, the change of mind, the change of attitude. This is where the religious groups, the religious leaders play a role. I have a challenge sometimes with our own pastors. I'm a pastor. I wear a double, hat, as a leadership consultant, but as a pastor, we are not translating our preaching into the day-to-day lives of our people. And that is why attitudinal change is not making any progress. But again, it is a vision that will inspire us, all right, that will drive us to pursue attitudinal change. Infrastructure development. This vision would then call for infrastructure development. Hey, listen, if we want to become a developed nation, then we need to improve in our infrastructure. From road to water to electricity, we need to. So every sector now will be challenged that based upon our 30-year direction, this is what is going to happen. Enforcement of law and order. The same vision would now call us that because now we want to deal with socio-cultural transformation, people now must make sure that we enforce the law. So the security forces will now be empowered. They will be reminded that because of this vision, you can't just ignore wrongdoing. When people do the wrong thing, get them arrested, fix the problem. The vision will also call for the next thing is security, where the police will have to be retrained, retooling, and redevelopment, okay? So that the average police officer will have what I call, he will become a mini police station. He has a short pistol with him, he has a shotgun with him, he has a handcuff, he has a communication gadget, he is mobile, so that when he arrests you and you are probably creating problem for him, he has a gun, so you'll be scared. He has a handcuff, he can grab you, or he can radio the next officer and you can easily be arrested. The vision will call for the retraining of our police institution. As it is now, they must be retrained, but the vision will demand that. Then technology. Because of the vision, we will then move from cutlass and hose farming into industrialization, because we want to have an agricultural development. So again, if we are now going to move into that, then by and large, we can end up producing any agricultural product or input that will allow us to become a mechanized, to move into mechanized farming. Initially, we'll import them, but if by and large, in the next 20 years, we can produce all the things we need if we have to have an industrialized or a mechanized farming. And then the last point of the thematic area is leadership development. Again, you can then start from JHS, SHS to the university, develop people so that they can become the kind of leaders we want them to have. So in the next 30 years, we will look back and we'll be proud of the Ghana we have built, that we have moved them. How were we able to do that? It is because we gave ourselves a vision, and the vision affected these 10 thematic areas, and it made all of us to buy into and to drive this nation. And Ghana will become a great country.
You see, I'm listening to you, and it's becoming very, very, very scary. Even though it sounds like common sense and it sounds basic and what we should have done, it looks so huge as a problem. Because even with sanitation, pure sanitation, we depend on donors to come and give us money so we can build KVIPs. And here you are industrializing, improving agriculture and all this. It's far-fetched.
Yes, but that is why every vision is bigger than the visionary. Okay? When the vision is smaller than the leader, then that is no vision.
You might as well have not dreamt.
Exactly. If you can just do things without sweat and difficulty, that is no vision. The vision should sometimes scare you. And so it is that vision that would definitely, it should be bigger than you. Most often visions outlived the visionary leader. So you may not achieve it in your lifetime. Others will come and continue with it and drive that country forward. So it shouldn't scare us that perhaps we may not see everything in our lifetime. Yeah, because that is what visions are for. You may not see all in your lifetime. However, you have laid the foundation and others will be able to build on it. Obasanjo made a statement. He said, the problem of the woes of Africa leadership is at all levels. He said the problem of the woes of Africa is leadership at all levels. And this is a past president of Nigeria. So he has also come to conclude that our problem is that we don't have the people to craft the vision to lead. People want to be led. People want to be given hope. People want to be inspired. That which will give them hope, inspiration, empowerment is called vision. Until we have it, believe you me, with my eyes open and I speak to my audience, this country is not going anywhere. We are only moving in circles.
It's dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
At what point did we lose our forward march? Because, at one point in time, we were industrializing, we were up there with the point. Is it merely the 1966 coup that was our turning point, or where was it? I know Achampon did good things. I'm an Achampon apologist. I'm an astounded Achampon apologist whose vision, Operation Feed Yourself, and he did so many things for us to know that, look, this was the direction that was going. But at what point did we start this reverse gear?
Yes, the point is, I see, definitely it will come to during the coup, the 1966 coup, and subsequent coups that came in here and there. And so that terminated the vision that Nkrumah gave to this country. And it has been very difficult to go back, into the vision. So it was the coups that really terminated the direction of our country. And then, unfortunately, the other leaders we have produced, by and large, were not thinking about the national development. They were just thinking about here and now. And most good leaders don't think about today. They think about tomorrow. But unfortunately, we have people who are only just thinking about what they can do, what they will come to their pocket. So that was the missing link. And we must call for leaders now who will be able to think about tomorrow, who will be able to educate the people, who will be able to say, look, this is where we are taking everybody to. So to answer to your question, the answer to your question is yes, it was the coups that really terminated the direction this country was to go. If perhaps we have, there wasn't any interruption of the coup, believe you me, Ghana would just be like Singapore, Malaysia, and better than them. But today we are way back but we all started, we had independence together with Malaysia. But look at where we are now. The difference between Malaysia and Ghana is like night and day. That is not anything we need to be proud of. Unfortunately, we have people who want to compare themselves to the West African countries, that, well, we are better than Togo, we are better than Nigeria, or we are better than Burkina Faso and Badam. They are not our standard, for goodness sake. They are not our standard. I mean, if we have developed nations like America, like, Germany, why would we compare ourselves to the West African communities? So we must have something that should really challenge us and inspire us that we can move our nation forward.
Another thing which I find is we are taking too much of our culture out of our culture. Our indigenous culture out of our culture. How do we progress as a people without our original culture?
No, culture cannot become a hindrance, except, of course, if there are certain cultures that perhaps do not seem to help and to transform us. At a point in time, India, what they still do. I mean, for them, the cows are treated sacred. But at a point, and meanwhile, they go hungry while they look at these cows. But at a point, they realize that, this is a religious myth. So they had to start a new program to educate people that, look, the cows are there for the human consumption and not to be worshipped. It took a period of over 15 to 20 years so that the new generation of people who were grew up to realize that the cows are good for us. To bring there are a lot of cultural things that perhaps haven't helped us. One of the things that leaders can do, meet with the National House of Chiefs. Empower them, tell them, ask them. Now, you are in that field, so you can appreciate. Meet with all of them and ask them to identify all the cultural norms that have hindered our national growth, that has hindered our individual development. They should identify all of them. And once they do, then they would have to suggest what are the things that we can do
to move us forward.
To move us forward and to deal with
and then enhance those things.
Exactly.
Bishop, thank you very much. All too soon. Can you imagine? Our time is up. But if you grant me the permission, I want to come knocking on your door again. I've read a few more of your articles so that I can come and discuss it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was PM Express, positive and soul edifying motivation speak. Until next time, as I say, I'll be back to do it all over again.